Yo, what's going on, everybody? I figured I'd come on and make a review about Elden Ring Nightreign, considering that I steamrolled the fuck out of the last four bosses yesterday. Good groups, back to back, good gear, back to back. It was fucking phenomenal. So that being said, on a high note, I figured I'd come on and make a little review about it. I have been playing the Souls games since the dawn of the original Demon Souls. I didn't play it, but I remember my friends talking about it, everything. Honestly, when I first heard about Demon Souls, I thought the game was basically an enigma, right? Hearing about it, this big fucking world, this hard ass game. That's what my friends were talking about. So never played it, but I never forget my friend and I, time one of my best friends, we bought the original Dark Souls first one when it came out, and it actually came out on my birthday. I believe the first Dark Souls came out. Let me just double check. Fuck no. So it didn't come out on my birthday, but my friend and I got it on my birthday. We bought the game on my birthday, October 4th, and obviously 2011. And he loved it, but he was familiar with Demon Souls, while I wasn't. So when I first got the game, I couldn't even I didn't even really get past Undead Parish. I don't even think I got past the original prison when you first spawned into Undead Asylum in Dark Souls 1 because I didn't understand the mechanics of the game. Um, but my friend told me, he was like, "Look, dude, get into it. What you need to learn is you need to learn how to lock onto enemies." Once I learned that mechanic, that was when I fell in love with the series. I think to this day, Dark Souls 1 has the most hours played of any game that I own on Xbox 360. And if you want to know how much of an OG I am, for those who fucking know, Fight Club's Undead Parish. If you know, you know. Fight Club's Undead Parish, Gank Squads, and I forgot what the field was called, but it's the field that you walk through when you go in and when you're going to kill Sif. Gank parties in the Anne Orlando Cathedral before you go fight Ornstein and Smo. Fucking hiding behind doorways, hiding behind doorways, using, I think it was the Hawk's Ring, the one that gave you the additional critical hits on backstabs, hiding behind doorways and catching fuckers with that on invasions. Dude, I fucking love that game. So I've been playing the Soul series for a very long time. And my favorite out of the bunch is Bloodborne. I know it's not an incredibly hot take, but even with the release of Elden Ring, Bloodborne is still by far my favorite. I personally think, given how big and expansive Elden Ring is, I personally think Bloodborne can be considered as Miyazaki's magnum opus. I love that game. I loved it. That game is, in my opinion, perfect. I loved it. So, with all that being said, going into Elden Ring Nightreign, to be honest, when I first saw the initial, first looks and reviews, I really, really, really wasn't a big fan of the way it looked. Honestly, I really wasn't. Um, First look and first glance at just the overall UI and the gameplay and how the game overall looks, there's something about it. It's like if you go play Convergence, right? If you go play, any of the Convergence mods, you can tell something is out of place. You can tell that there isn't like this quality polish and finish that Elden Ring does with, or fucking consider Elden Ring as devs, that FromSoft does when they're developing these games. And even then, I still feel like Nightreign just doesn't have that quality polish and finish that the rest of their titles have. And it overall just feels like one big mod. It feels like a giant mod. It feels like a $40 paid for mod, which isn't a bad thing, right? I mean, because I mean, convergence is awesome. Everybody still gets all of their, replayability through mods. The randomizer, convergence, any of the other mods that any of the story driven mods that have been developed for these games. Even the seamless co-op mods, people get replayability out of that. So with it feeling like a mod doesn't damper on the quality of the gameplay, it's just it's missing that defined definitive polish, right? Um, you know, some things that are kind of clunky and janky would be, I main Raider. That's who I beat the game with, was Raider. All the bosses, by the way, I beat with Raider. Um, certain things like using his ultimate art. Sometimes the bosses get stuck in his art. That feels a little bit janky. Um, some things like reviving your teammates feels a little bit janky, right? I personally feel like I wish that it wasn't a, you have to hit them to get them back up. I wish there was a button that you can either press or hold, and then it could still drain down stamina. But to hit your teammates, I really didn't feel like it was, you know, I didn't really, it's a non-issue really. I wish it could have been done better. Um, but honestly, other than that, that's really my complaints. Everything else about the game is phenomenal, and I've had so much fun with it. I really didn't think that I would. Some of the things that I really enjoyed was they really, really tightened. They really tightened everything up when it came to developing the multiplayer aspect of this game. When I first started playing it, I was disconnecting constantly, back to back to back. It was incredibly frustrating. And then I got on the second day, and I second day and onwards, I haven't dealt with it since at all. Um, so I really feel like they did a fantastic job with that, because everyone knows that netcode, desync, and all those things when it comes to the multiplayer experience in the Souls games suck ass. So the fact that that they really tightened it up really did good, and hopefully, you know everybody everybody knows that FromSoft is known for making these interim games to pretty much test out their new features, right? So that goes to say something. Another thing that I really liked about this game as well is, with it being a roguelike, the the randomness, and how can I really put this into words? Because the game is, definitely a roguelike. There's no denying that. But the the way that the game randomizes is really interesting, right? And I was explaining this to a friend yesterday when he was asked when we were talking about it. The game does indeed lack in the way that it does implement its RNG factor when it comes to, going on your expeditions. Such as, you know, um, you you kind of are getting the same pool of weapons. You're kind of getting the same pool of passives throughout your run. You kind of know where to go on the map. Like the map variation itself doesn't change. You know where to go. You know what bosses to kill, and not to kill. You know where to go to get a certain legendary, everything like that. And honestly, the legendary aspect and venturing out into your shifting earth mechanic parts, it is that aspect of it. Honestly, I do that. And you know what? Getting to that is kind of a complaint too, as well, because The shifting earth mechanic is really cool as it comes to adding RNG into the game, but I do wish that the developers took the moment to shift where they go on the map itself versus okay, the Scarlet Rot Forest spawns here. The crater spawns here. The the city spawns there. The mountaintop spawns here. Like they all have like their set moments and set areas of when they spawn, where they spawn, and they all interact the exact same. So that's one of the things where I was getting to how it's interesting how they do that RNG, because you get because you know where to go, you know what you're gonna get, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of delineates from the randomness factor, but at the same time, it still keeps it interesting because of the overall gear pool. You always get something different, and then with the addition of the Equilibrious Beast NPC that you can go and do deals with as you get further into the bosses, is it does make things interesting in the late game, which is another topic I want to get to, is the way that this game actually progresses you through the use of its RNG within the map. So when you first start off and you go and fight the three-headed dog, and like the first 3 or 4 bosses that you're gonna fight, the map itself is overall really basic. And that in itself is I feel like that in itself could have been done a little bit better, because a lot of people can be thrown off as like, oh wow, like this game has nothing, the map's so empty, blah blah blah. When you get to the first one, when you get to the first 4 boss, because there really is nothing. And then what really kicked everything off is when you fight the sentient pest. That's when I feel like things really popped off when it comes to the map variation and the randomness of it, because that's when you have to start dealing with the the POIs, where you have to fight the invaders. That's when you have to start dealing with the locust swarms. That's when you have to start having to go doing deals with the Equilibrious Beast, things of that stuff. That's when it really starts to take a hold of, wow, this game really does feel random like this. So um yeah, and also, as you start progressing, I feel like the loopholes get better and better, and you start getting more legendary items, and you start gaining passives that benefit your character in a much different and power fantasy strong way, such as you start actually getting commons or purples with passives that that are basically built for your character and your character only, such as the character grief passives, like the Duchess grief, the Raider grief, Water's grief, things of that nature. You start actually getting weapons like that. So I feel like that's basically the progression in terms of skill and gear and all that stuff that I really really do like. um One thing that is necessarily a non-issue, once again, is I understand that this game made a lot of callbacks to Dark Souls 2. It really did, and I'm very appreciative of it. But one thing that I do wish that they did do was they could have dived a lot more into its boss pool for bosses. They really could have. Um, the fact that they have so many bosses in their pool within their series, and they only dove into like 3 or 4 of the different ones outside of the regular Elden Ring bosses is kind of lame, right? I mean, there were so many bosses that they could have added that wasn't necessarily like crazy to me, honestly. Like they could have added Iodex Gundyr, which is basically who the fuck Fulghor is, but he's just got 4 legs and a glaive. He could have added. They could have added. They could have added Sif. They could have added Slade Knight Gale. They could have they could have definitely added the Logic Princes, the Demon Prince, Magnus. They could have added, some more dragon bosses like Medeir, things like that. So I feel like that they kind of lacked in that case of their overall boss pool, which is whatever. Um, I really can't give an opinion on all the other characters because, like I said, I only really played Raider, so this is like my initial review. I guess you can look at it or final, whatever. But that's not to say I will be going back and soloing all the bosses with all the different characters and all that stuff. So, like I said, this game is great. Um, some things that I wish it could have added was some type of mechanics where you can either change your weapon or have some kind of a loadout before you go in, very similar to other different roguelike games like Hades, Into the Gungeon, even Risk of Rain. You know, let us have some type of different variety for us to go in instead of having to rely on the relics to do that for us. Um, so yeah, I mean that's pretty much covered. That's pretty much covered everything, right? Yeah. So, once again, I really enjoyed the game. I really can't wait to see what they come to next. The Sentient Beast hard mode boss was just announced today, and it'll be coming out July 3rd, I think. So make sure to tune in and come follow the stream, follow the YouTube. I try to stream every day. I will be going back and soloing, like I said, soloing all the bosses with all the different characters in sequence, so top to bottom with every character, because I want to really get the feel how all the different characters are with all the different bosses, just to get a little bit more out of the game. I mean, because honestly, I'm caught up right now. I can quit. So anyway, I appreciate you coming by, coming to watch. But until next time, later.